I think sometimes it's okay to not take things so seriously, but I also know it's important, that we have to honor how we feel about things. And
hey, we just got out of watching Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm Matthew.
I'm Joshua.
I'm Jimmy.
And this will be our non-spoiler review. And then if you stay a little while longer to the end, we'll have our spoiler breakdown. We'll bring in our parents, kind of go around the car. We're in our car right now, just because we just got out of the theater, but also as a little nod to something in the movie. So without giving too much away, yes, this movie. Before watching this movie, we actually went on a journey, caught up the rest of the family on the first Deadpool, Deadpool 2, and Logan as well, where these characters were before this movie, and now of course Deadpool and Wolverine. And immediately, I mean, what did you guys think?
It's very clear that in order to really appreciate this movie and what they were doing, it's really a love letter to what's been done already with all the movies that have come out and what Fox has done for Marvel. And it's just a beautiful way of having all of that and honoring all of it. And it was quite the experience. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, and it's a lot. But I enjoyed it.
It does not
shy the context.
It does not shy away from the R rating. I know a lot of people were worried about that now that it was the MCU and Disney, but it for sure is just as R rated as Deadpool has been in the past. Specifically when it comes to the violence, it's just out there. But Josh did mention it. There was a sense of intentionality with each shot. As violent and as crazy as it got, if you were to just pause some of those moments, it'd be like something out of those comic books with Deadpool and Wolverine. So, like Josh said, a love letter, an appreciation, a tribute to the characters that the Fox movies, brought to life. The actors as well, and the way that the actors brought themselves to these characters that everyone fell in love with. And just a great way to not leave those things in the past, because like Josh said, an appreciation, a way of saying thank you, because we wouldn't have what we have today, superhero-wise, superhero genre, without those movies. So it's beautiful in that way. It definitely is very chaotic. It was quite the adventure. We haven't laughed in a Marvel movie this much in a long time, if at all. I mean, it was just such a hilarious ride with these characters.
Unpredictability as well. Oh my gosh, just the story. It's so unpredictable. Leaves you at the edge of your seat, like what's gonna happen next.
It's definitely a specific, and I said a letter, but it's definitely a to from. Like it's a very specific letter. It's not just a movie that was made to go to a general audience. It's for a specific group of people that have followed all of these movies for all these years. And you finally get to come to the theaters with a movie made for you, made for us. And I would say we caught up to be able to fully experience it. But there is a specific audience that they developed this for, so that they could really show them that we appreciate you. We are so grateful that you've come to the theaters and experienced these stories, no matter how chaotic the producers and all the things have been, and that you just show up to love superhero movies and to love the interactions of characters and comic book stories. And that's really what this is. So not for kids. One, we are young adults, so do not bring your kids to this film. And it's definitely it's for the adults that are young at heart, but they've experienced some things in comic books that are a bit, a lot. But it's fascinating. It's a lot of symbolism. It's a lot of heart, and it's just it's
strangely
amazing.
Metaphorical. It's easy to kind of generalize this genre of films and movies of the high comedy, very adult comedy, and intense graphic, blood and gore. But they did it just so geniusly. Like, there's a lot of love put into this film, and just honoring every character. Like I think Matthew, you said, with the violence, it just felt like straight out of the comic book. Honestly, I felt it the most with this one versus the other two Deadpool movies we watched. It was like kind of like the cherry on top of it being like, it felt like that Marvel Cinematic Universe format, yet it was Deadpool. So it was really, really well done. So
that's interesting that you say that, because I did feel that too. The movie, even though it's part of the MCU, it's not trying hard to be part of a phase. I mean, I think Sean Levy even said it. It's very much still kind of a standalone thing. And for two characters that have quite a significance in the Fox history with superheroes, Deadpool kind of became a thing in terms of the movies towards the end of Fox's run with the X-Men and those superheroes. and then you have Wolverine and Hugh Jackman that was part of the X-Men towards like the beginning of that journey. So that's quite interesting to see two of these characters, two of these actors from different sides who happen to also be best friends in real life. You know, you just think about that too, like how much fun they must have had together, including Sean Levy, like just all working together on set as friends, bringing these characters that they clearly love to the screen.
Even if you're not caught up with Deadpool, like the first and second, and watch Logan, they still do, like, they don't make you, I feel like if you look from, like, maybe I'd be curious to hear somebody who hasn't watched those movies before watching this one.
very off guard.
You'd be caught off guard, but they also catch you up in a really great, beautiful way. Also, some things you may not have seen because of seeing something else. I don't want to be too specific because I don't know how spoilers I might get.
Yeah.
But the way they reference it, it's like introducing it as a completely new thing. Like, I know for me, there were some things I didn't really fully know. And I was like, oh, that's great. Like, you can still get well caught up. So even if you haven't watched the other movies, I think you would still enjoy this one. But it definitely enhances the experience if you are caught up with the other films.
Overall, before we get into spoilers, the movie was a lot of fun for us as a whole family of adults and young adults. And just overall themes and just I think this journey that we've taken over the past couple weeks. Like I said, watching the Deadpool movies, then Logan, and then of course now Deadpool and
X-Men
Wolverine.
97, being able to
And
experience
X-Men 97, of
the
course.
X-Men and really finding a gravity and all of that, and truly stepping back into that, because you know we experienced those X-Men films when they came out not too long ago, but a bit ago now, and that's something that we share.
The movie knows who its audience is. It loves its audience, for sure. I know for me, like I was younger when the X-Men movies came out, so I was younger, but I still remember seeing them. This is definitely more for the people that are like, you know, my dad's age, and people that really grew up with them. And again, the significance that, for example, Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine, like what that meant for people. And so even that, just seeing him come back, just a lot. So anyway, we're going to turn it over now to our parents, and then we'll probably chime in a little bit here and there when we're talking about spoilers. But yeah, specifically talk about my dad. My dad loves Wolverine, and Hugh Jackman, that whole thing, how all this impacted him, and my mom, for sure, two different perspectives. So anyway, this is your last spoiler warning. We're going to get into a spoiler breakdown, a little bit more into the story, plot, things that stood out to us, maybe funny moments, things like that. So anyway, we're going to begin talking about spoilers in 3, 2, 1.
I mean, I'm sure you have a lot to share. I was very open-minded going into this movie. I'm glad you guys prepared me to watch Deadpool 1 and 2 and Logan. I think Logan especially, I loved that I got to see the Logan story before seeing Wolverine in this movie. I very much learned to appreciate the comedy of Ryan Reynolds. A lot of the comedy is just genius. A lot of it is very like just, you know, that kind of humor I don't really enjoy. But some of those jokes were very, I don't know, the intentionality of them. They have no resistance. Like they don't hold back with saying things. Like they just flat out say things that you would think, oh no, this is going to insult somebody. And they just do it. Like we were like, They really just said that. They really just did that. Being a Marvel, Disney, like fan, Fox, like Marvel movie fan, this definitely had a lot of things in it that is funny because we're aware of certain things. If we just come in to see this movie just as a regular movie, like if we're going to come and see, I don't know, some random movie at the theater, we wouldn't really connect with it as much as I think we did because of our history with these movies. Mm-hmm. And then the fandom of Wolverine, anyone who's like a huge fan like you, I almost like rejoiced for you seeing what I saw, because it's not my kind of movie, the gore, the blood, you know, I had to really allow myself to be a little forgiving and accepting and open to being there. But I did enjoy the journey because of that, because I think they did a beautiful homage to the fans, to the story, to the history of these characters. And they definitely hit the nostalgia points. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens moving forward. But no matter what happens moving forward, this was a beautiful like compilation of their friendship. I think their there's history with this character, and I don't know, I think it was beautifully done. I mean, obviously there was moments where I'm like, okay, can we be done now? But I did notice in this movie with the violence and the gore, like the blood and stuff, it was a different form of editing and a different form of like special effects. I don't know, I'm rambling now, but
there's just a pure element of fun to this whole movie.
Yes.
You know, I feel like how Ryan Reynolds and his team must have been like, how do we continue this and just have the absolute most fun making it? And they did. I mean, the whole of this movie is so much fun. I mean, we open with a complete desecration of what is treated as the holy grave of Logan, from Logan. And it was appalling. It's shock and awe to the max. At first I was like, I don't want to laugh at this, but I can't help but laugh. There's a strange reality to that there's nothing left there but adamantium bones and still some of the skin decaying on the bones of Logan. But then we find out what that means and the whole of like the timeline. That part I got a little confused on. So some story elements there. I'm just not savvy to the comics, so maybe that's why I wasn't sure how Logan is what do you call them? What did they call him? Like an apex character or anchor being? That's it. An anchor being. So that's a new term for me. But I mean, none of that stuff got in my way. I just enjoyed seeing Wolverine on screen. I was very concerned coming into the movie how they were going to balance out the jokester that Deadpool is, making a joke out of everything, and then you're going to put him with Wolverine, who has this gravitas and like sincere, like super dramatic, you know, kind of character, and they did it beautifully. I mean, it just makes sense, and the fact that we meet a Wolverine that is broken to the max because he's lost his whole family because of who he is and his timeline and his universe or whatever. That was very interesting to me. I got a little bit like, I mean, almost every single word out of that Logan's mouth is the F word. I mean, dropping F-bombs left and right. At first I was like, wow, he's an angry Wolverine. This is exactly what I remember growing up with as a kid. And then it just became funny. So yeah, I think I got desensitized to it. But what I liked is that it wasn't just to say the F word over and over. Once we literally got inside the head of Logan, of this Wolverine, Cassandra, who's played by this actress, Emma Curran, I think is her name. She literally goes into his mind, and we get an understanding as to why he's this way on a deeper level. And then we also have that scene where he's reunited with X-23 Laura from Logan. I mean, it was just we had these beautiful cameos that came up, these characters that were long lost. I'm still deciding how I feel about Channing Tatum as Gambit. I think as a joke it works beautifully, and he had some really cool epic shots as Gambit. It's just genius. It's genius because it takes your expectations and it flips it on its head, sometimes literally, with the violence. And I just enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. This was the first time viewing it.
Very, like, for the nostalgia of it, I think for the love of the characters, the history of them, I think it's great. It wasn't a perfect film, I wouldn't say. For me, like, you know, there was a part where all the Deadpools come back at the end. I think that was a bit, like, overkill, in my opinion, at that point. Like, I think all of that was done so they could both jump out of that bus. Like, to look epic, like
to get into, you know, what I'm saying, fight.
And to be able to include maybe a lot of Deadpools. Maybe he just liked the idea of that concept, but maybe it's very close to the comics that I haven't seen and I don't know about. But I think there was so many jokes, because a lot of the jokes about, like,
some of the raunchier jokes,
the raunchy stuff, like, it's like, okay, that's kind of.
Well, that's not your kind of comedy.
Your kind of comedy.
Your comedy, you have more of a higher comedy taste, and this is very low ball.
Right,
no pun intended,
but when, for example,
comedy.
when they make the jokes about, like, you know, Fox, for example, or like the Jon Favreau, like, jokes, and I loved the fact that we connected to the actor jokes. That I don't know if people would have understood, like when he talked about residual income and like the extras moving out of the way.
He's like, pause for the extras to clear. That was
or letting the one-liner, make it kill me or something. Like there was a lot of jokes that were very personal to like what we
as an industry, as actors,
we understand.
That was really, really good.
So that's what I'm saying. Like there was layers of comedy that I think, depending on your your
Well, it's
connection
comedy for
to these
everybody.
things, you do connect to it. So
Yeah.
whether you've seen it or not, whether you're an actor or not, whether you know Disney or Marvel or not, everyone can connect to some of the humor and appreciate it. So I think that's the intellectual like thing I appreciate about that comedy, that it's not just to be inappropriate and raunchy. A lot of the comedy is very intellectual and like, you know, it makes these connections that if you're not careful, you might not catch it. But if you're listening, like there's so much there.
Yeah. You know, we're living in some really dark times. So to laugh a bit for a moment, I can really greatly appreciate it. I will say, though, I can't wait to hear your comments on this. But the dog, that is the ugliest dog I have ever seen. But it made me laugh and smile. And it was nasty because of the tongue thing. It was just, it is not, I don't understand why, but I'm so glad that they did it. It's just funny. And then there's this genuine joy in Ryan's depiction of Deadpool when he sees this absolutely hideous dog. I mean, I know a lot of you are no, it's such a cute dog. Okay, look, to each his own. But we'll have to agree to disagree. I'm just glad it brought Deadpool so much joy. But it made me crack up that by the end of the movie, this stinking dog is like these big old beady eyes. And I just couldn't believe the dedication and love to this dog. It was absolutely hilarious.
I mean, something that was sad for me was to realize that, you know, they did everything they could to not kill a dog, but yet all these humans being demolished and killed and like just, you know, just cut open and their heads popping off and exploding. Like, you know, a part of me does feel, I think that's why I don't enjoy these kinds of movies, because I do feel a sensitivity to like this lack of respect for these human, like so much slashing. But I appreciated the ride of the nostalgia and being there to experience a superhero that you have grown up watching, and to watch it as a family and to say that I saw it and there's things I could appreciate of it. Could I sit here and say there was things I didn't love about it because of just my own
well, your own taste?
That's okay.
And
I'm not going to bash the movie because I think there's definitely a lot there. So
it just made me think of when you're on the playground with your friends and you start giving everybody a role. I mean, when you bring back Elektra and you bring back, you know, Blade, Wesley Snipes, and you bring back all these, it's just fun. You know, it's kind of and they say it in the movie, it's a sense of closure for some of these characters. It's a sense of giving them a bit of a legacy and a jab. And so, you know, it's certain things that I think sometimes it's okay to not take things so seriously, but I also know it's important, you know, that we have to honor how we feel about things. And, you know, and the violence it's a lot. It's a lot. And it is very much, I think what you were referring to earlier is that the violence gets very comic driven. So there's like the splashes of blood and
the way the bodies fall and they flip over and like, yeah, I remember the pictures in the comics are very much like that. And they made that come to life. I feel like it was a playground for special effects, for stunt doubles, for stunt workers, stunt artists.
Right. I mean,
athletes,
that's work for people. So.
Editors. I mean, there was some of those things. I don't know how they did it.
And if people who are fans of like gory, scary movies, you'll like this. There's a lot of that. I find myself looking away. Sometimes the fighting is really cool, and there's one of the first big fights between Wolverine and Deadpool. I mean, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool says it. All right, let's give them what they came for, and it is a really good fight. Yeah. It is a really good fight. And then there's times where the violence is just like overkill. It is overkill. But then you just keep going because the story is enough.
The story was
to
really great.
keep you engaged and finding out what happens next. So
not the story overall, but the story of each of their characters. I think was beautiful.
Character driven.
The whole story overall was a little, you know, it was.
Well, it's a little
okay,
spotty.
But...
It's a little. I have question marks in terms of like the timeline, and you know, we saw some characters in there from Loki, and so there's like questions of like, wait, how does this tie into what happened in Loki, and does it change anything? I don't know that it does.
I feel like you forgive it because you're there for Logan and you're there for Deadpool, and whatever happens around them, like it's, I don't know, it's forgivable because you You just want to see their story and what's happening with them.
Yeah.
Their closure, their own personal journeys, and them coming together and then bonding and doing all these amazing things we saw. So the other stuff was almost like secondary background.
Yes.
Their story was the forefront, and I love that.
Yeah, it's temporarily forgivable, I think is what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because maybe as the days go on, we find out the details of the theories and the why this and that, and
maybe
there's
his
plenty of that
introduction, the way that Deadpool starts the story, of being like, look, this is what we're showing, this is what it is. You're almost not sitting there expecting it to connect or doing all these things we used to think of in the past with Marvel. You're just there for that story, and you're just going to take it as it comes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a genius move on his part.
Yes.
So anyway, I think the creators did a heck of a job putting this together.
I mean, it's a really fun movie, and and if we were to really go in and dissect are there imperfections? Probably.
But Jennifer Garner was so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
That was really sensational.
That was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah,
that came out.
That was a lot of fun. That was
cool.
wonderful surprises like that. I mentioned Chris Evans. I don't know. I don't want to say too much about that one.
Yeah.
There's so much to say. I think I was like, Captain America. Why is he in the void? It's because it's not Captain America. I'll end with this. My favorite little thing, little nudge thing. I mentioned this earlier, that these little nudges to the past. Oh my goodness! At the end, right before as the credits start, you get this footage of them. It's behind the scenes of each of the actors. Right? Hugh Jackman, Chris Evans as Johnny. In the original Fantastic Four, and you see Jennifer Garner as Elektra, and all this. You see them like behind the scenes when they're shooting the original X-Men. Super nostalgic, and again, as an actor, a family of actors, we appreciate that, because you even see the interview where Hugh Jackman's like telling people, this is a lot of them were waiting for me to really mess this up, and obviously he didn't. It's gone on to become a legendary role for all of us comic book fans, and I'm just grateful. It was a good day at the movies.
It was interesting because they were making jokes about like almost insulting Fox. But at the end, it was like a love story to Fox and an appreciation for the journey they've been on. And they're like, okay, we're not in Fox anymore, but thank you, Fox, for everything you've done. It was almost like a beautiful nod to, a good letter to them.
You just reminded me. I remember when Kevin Feige came on stage. I read the article originally. I forget which one of these conferences it was, and he was like throwing F-bomb here and F-bomb there. At first I was like, really? What is that about? Mm-hmm. I was bothered by it. But now, in retrospect, seeing what this version of Wolverine, seeing the whole of this movie, it makes sense. Not only is it genius marketing, but it's strangely like a good testament to the character of this version of Wolverine, which I came to appreciate. I was a little annoyed by him in the onset of the introduction, because he just kept dropping F-bombs, and I don't understand why he was so angry. But he delivered, Once again, Hugh Jackman delivers, and it's just, I loved it. I loved it. Right now, I have no complaints really about it, just question marks here and there. So, I mean, I think it's definitely worth.
I'm not complaining because I kind of knew coming in what to expect. So, I know it was gonna have things I didn't really.
Well, listen, my favorite.
Appreciate and love, but I did love that I knew that, and I was able to appreciate the movie for what it was.
And my favorite thing is to be sitting next to you and the kids. Mm-hmm. We've grown up together like this, and the kids have become young adults as we've started this journey with them, and that's the most precious thing. That's why we do this, because we get to just share these memories together.
Yeah, we get to share it and have a moment.
What it's all about.
Yep. We'll see what comes up next, but I know the kids are going to come up next and close this thing out.
Yeah, let's close it out.
All right, so those were our parents' thoughts. Spoiler breakdown on their end. We second everything they say. We agree with them, and there were definitely a lot of things in there. Easter eggs, cameos. Again, this whole movie just feels like a love letter, a tribute, and just a big thank you letter to the actors, the characters, the movies that came before, and also in a way leaving space for the future. Mm-hmm. Developing Deadpool's character a little bit further as well. Deadpool is still Deadpool, in terms of his journey, his arc. He's still Deadpool. I mean, he's grown, but he also hasn't. He, with every leap he makes, he takes a couple steps back. So in that sense, you're still getting Deadpool. You know, on a subjective level, like my mom said, there's certain violent elements and things about the character as Deadpool that doesn't resonate as much with us. But as a whole, the way that Wolverine and Deadpool impacted each other, how their stories kind of connected, definitely was something that we were all for experiencing, and we did, and we're grateful that we got to do it as a family.
It truly completes the experience, because
really
the whole
does.
idea of Logan being the anchor to Deadpool's timeline, it makes sense because of the kind of character that Logan is. It truly does ground Deadpool's character, and you see that in this movie. So it was definitely well done. A combination I wasn't expecting, but then I didn't realize the significance it actually had.
Yeah.
So,
And then you also, in a way, Wolverine, the character, Hugh Jackman, they were an anchor to that entire franchise with Fox. What they meant, that he was the strongest thing going on for them. So it's that fourth wall element was super fascinating, the way it played even into all of that. You get a lot of that in this. So overall, it's just great in that way. Like I said in the beginning, to see Wolverine and Deadpool, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds make this thing happen. Yeah, it was quite the experience, that's for sure. But we definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comments as to what you guys thought of this film, how it impacted you. For those of you watching that are big Deadpool fans, big Wolverine fans, you know, there was a lot of, like I said, Easter eggs, cameos, things like that. If there's anything that we didn't talk on, or things that are important to kind of remember that you think were good. But overall, yeah, we really enjoyed this film. Again, little elements that just on a subjective level we don't resonate with, we don't necessarily agree with. You know, the way that Deadpool just lashes out and does what he wants because he thinks he can, right? With no consequence. But that's, again, you're dealing with archetypes, characters that when you put them together, stuff's gonna happen, and that's what we got. And in this case scenario, you have Wolverine and Deadpool that coming together, you know, sacrificed and worked together for the greater good. And that was something that, you know, we appreciated. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining us. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we go?
yeah, no, I just highly recommend it. I hope you guys enjoyed the movie as well. We definitely had a ride. It was a roller coaster, so I'm really grateful that we were able to watch this. It's easy to give this type of genre, and the way most of this kind of stuff is, it's easy to overlook it, but I'm thankful we stayed for the ride because it was worth it, in my opinion. So
yeah, overall, just grateful for all the characters. Again, the X-Men, I think more recently, like my dad said, we've been able to enjoy it as a family. So being able to come to the theaters and watch this and just talk about it is definitely a gift. So if you haven't already, definitely go watch this film, and we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And for yourself, you know, just experience it, see how you connect. Maybe you don't, and that's totally okay too, for sure. So anyway, you guys go out there, spread your light, and we'll see you guys in the next MaJeliv video. Have a MaJeliv day. Bye.